Geostorms come around too. I always like that before going to it.
I enjoyed it, it was good.
Valdez Peak was good. Volcano was good. Perfect storm. I never watched beside it. The Greenland, all good. Deep impact was good. I got watched it with the storm. That rest was good. Cold. The Mummy.
Oh, there's actually no words. I got hit with my car.
And the crew were told never to talk about the incident again.
I almost had it. Oh, that was so harsh, bro.
3 years later, Charles Berlitz published a hugely popular book about the mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. It sold 20 million copies. Berlitz claimed to see a peculiar pattern in these events, although many mainstream oceanographers prefer to blame the weather.
This area is notorious for sudden, vicious storms. The majority of hurricanes and tropical storms actually pass through the Bermuda Triangle. The problem with this explanation for the Bermuda Triangle mystery is that at the time of some of these incidents, there are no reports of bad weather.
And the huge glowing orb can't easily be dismissed as a weather event. What is more, 50 years on, UFOs are still being sighted over the Bermuda Triangle. And leaked documents on the WikiLeaks website show that objects like these might now be appearing on sophisticated military sensors too.
Military personnel monitor missiles. They do this by intercepting electronic communications between satellites and Earth. They also use their system of extremely sensitive infrared early warning satellites. Now, these satellites are 35,000 kilometers above the surface of the Earth, which means that they can know about pretty much any satellite launch on Earth. But that also means they catch a lot of other flying objects.
Some of these objects are easily identifiable. The ones that aren't are known as fast walkers.
Fast walkers is the military code name for objects that are moving strangely, that are picked up by their infrared sensors.
And there are a lot of them around the Bermuda Triangle.
Data is being picked up by instruments that are known to be reliable and accurate.
The object captured on Miami Beach certainly looks and moves like one of these so-called fast walkers, not emerging out of the distant ocean, but right up by the coastline.
Is there something under the waters of the Bermuda Triangle we should be looking for? A base, or even just a dangerous natural anomaly? A lot of ships.
Still, over a city so prone to turbulent air currents, it's famously called the Windy City.
And he does experience very... it can't be hanging from something obscure, though it is a dull day, because then it wouldn't be so steady.
The object defies the gusts around it in a way that humans can only achieve with huge amounts of stabilizing thrust and power.
Engineers today, of course, can create vehicles that hover like helicopters. They can even make jet engine-powered vehicles hover, albeit at great expense and considerable complexity.
The F-35B, an aircraft introduced to the US Air Force in 2015, can hover in midair, despite weighing over 27,000 kilograms. But the noise it gives off is up to 115 decibels. As loud as a typical rock concert. This object is eerily silent, and its shape otherworldly.
When it comes to things that fly, you're really looking for the kind of classic telltale signs of thrust and propulsion. So wings, jet engines, propellers. This object doesn't have any of them. It's not clear how it got into the air in the first place, and it's certainly not clear how it's staying there.
The classic UFO from science fiction is a flying saucer or disc, but much more bizarre shapes, like this one, caught on film over Chicago, are reported by observers.
A man in New York in 1974 reported seeing an unidentified spinning top.
There was one spotted above Los Angeles that to some people looked to be a humanoid holding a kind of orb.
For the city of Chicago, on the shores of Lake Michigan, bizarre UFO incidents have stepped up since a weird encounter above the city's main airport, witnessed by dozens of people.
On November 7th, 2006, a classic saucer-like
Okay,
object
well.
was spotted over Chicago's O'Hare Airport. Reports varied about what this actually looked like, although they did all agree that it kind of had this saucer-like shape.
The object was said to have hovered over gate C-17 for several minutes before shooting off at great speed. It's said to have moved so fast it punched a hole in the clouds over the airport.
People who saw this object, they work in aviation. They're ground crew, they're mechanics, they're flight attendants. They see aircraft all the time. But none of them knew what this was. And its proximity to the airport was very, very concerning. You would have thought that an object like this, as close as it was to the airport, would have caused some kind of investigation. The Federal Aviation Administration would have gotten involved. It would have been a big deal. But that didn't happen.
Initially, the Federal Aviation Administration refuses to issue any type of report on the incident, but when a local paper, the Chicago Tribune, files a Freedom of Information Act, the FAA attributes it to a weather phenomenon.
But the public didn't buy this explanation, and from that moment, Chicago became associated with UFOs. Reports flood in every month. But this is a city of over 2.5 million people, most of whom are not trained observers.
More and more people are looking into the skies. More and more people will see things that they can't understand and will ascribe it to a UFO.
And there could be a terrestrial explanation for all this activity over Chicago. Just north of the city, there is one of the US government's most important military installations.
The Naval Station Great Lakes is the U.S. Navy's largest training ground. It's been home to 20,000 soldiers, sailors, Marines, Department of Defense civilians. They all live there and they work there.
The US Navy spends $22 billion annually on technology, research, and development. It's possible that what was seen over Chicago in 2006 and in 2021 was secret craft being tested.
The fact that you've got a military area nearby very quickly explains that this is going to be associated with the military.
Lest we forget the lessons when Elon Musk and SpaceX began launching their Starlink satellite constellations. A lot of people started reporting UFOs when in reality it was just a long line of satellites all moving together.
But there is a more sinister possibility. The Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, Scott Bragg, admitted at a press conference in May 2022 that UFOs were targeting military training facilities in the United States.
Since the early 2000s, we have seen an increasing number of unauthorized and/or unidentified aircraft or objects in military-controlled training areas. Reports of sightings are frequent and continuing. Incursions in our training ranges by unidentified objects represent serious hazards to safety of flight. Second, intrusions by unknown aircraft or objects pose potential threats to the security of our operations.
These objects may not be interested in Chicago, but in its massive naval training complex next door.
Sightings are repeatedly happening over training exercises, and the most recent report, released in 2021, the most compelling findings there were also reported by a naval investigation into similar phenomena. Is that a coincidence?
And the Pentagon's Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program advised the government that these incursions may not be entirely friendly.
What we do see is what we would consider in the military as active ISR, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, or potentially what we call IPB, initial preparations of the battle space. So let's just for one moment that these things, whatever they are